Hello, everybody, and welcome on the Commerce Show. Today, I'm receiving Sara Evans Saunders from Aphria. Sara has several e-commerce experiences, and this is why I reached out to her. It's gonna be the first time I'm talking with her over the phone, and I'm sure you will enjoy the questions I'm asking to her. So Sarah has been working at La Vie en Rose in the past as e-commerce manager. She was also one of the first employee at Flow Water. She had to do everything from the ground up. With all the sales channels such as Amazon seller, US Amazon seller, Canada also, and now she's at Aphria, which is one of the largest publicly traded company that sell and grow cannabis. So it's going to be very interesting to see all the regulations and limitations on how we can market that type of product online, of course. Thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and all the other channels to be updated each time we release a new episode. Thank you so much. The podcast starts right now. Hello, everybody, and welcome on the Commerce Show. Today, as I said earlier, I'm with Sara Evans Saunders from Aphria. Hello, Sara.
Hi, nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for joining us today. All right, so let's start with the first question. So, from in the past, you were a customer service rep. You've been also an e-commerce coordinator, then a team leader, and now a digital marketing manager at Aphria, one of the largest cannabis publicly traded company. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your previous experience?
I think I started my career pretty young because I didn't follow the typical school route, and I decided to work almost immediately when I got out of high school. And I'm proud to say that I really started from the bottom and worked my way up in the industry. And when I came out of high school, I knew I wanted to work in fashion. And we all know how Montreal has amazing fashion opportunities. And that's how I kind of landed that entry level job at Redsack as a receptionist. And while I was working, I decided to, pursue school at night and graduate from LaSalle College in fashion marketing and e-business. So really, I ended up staying at Redsack for almost 4 years. Like you said, I
Nice.
went receptionist. I was an executive assistant, wholesale coordinator, customer service supervisor, and I really enjoyed working throughout so many departments at Redsack. And at the end, I ended up in the e-commerce department, which I absolutely adored, and I think that's where I fell in love with that industry. Um, and like I said, after almost 4 years, I was approached by La Vie en Rose, and that's where I decided to pursue my career there in their e-commerce department. The mandate was really to develop their e-commerce channel, and I accepted it, and I went there. Um, Little did I know that after a few months, Bikini Village was acquired by La Vie en Rose, and it was such an amazing project that I
Yeah.
went to see my vice president right away, and I said, you know what, I want to work on that project. I
Nice.
didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know anything at the time. I just said I want to work on that, and she said yes. So that was
Nice.
amazing, and yeah, and I had the chance to work on the complete rebranding and the relaunch of Bikini Village, and of course, my work was mostly developing the strategy for the new e-commerce website. Everything had to be done, so it was so much learning, and it was so much fun. So yeah.
That's very nice part of your career. So you had
Yeah.
basically to take charge of all the rebranding and the platform integration in terms of e-commerce. I think we're gonna talk about that later, and
Yeah.
then you move forward to another company. I think that you were drinking just a few minutes ago.
Exactly. So when I was at La Vie en Rose, in Montreal, my boyfriend got promoted to a national role with his previous company. So he was at Rebel, a small company, and he was offered a promotion in Toronto. So at the time, I was ready to look for a new challenge, and I said, "Why not?" And I left my role in Montreal, and within 2 3 months, we moved out of our condo on the south shore of Montreal, and we are now downtown core Toronto. I left my job. I didn't know what I wanted to do here. I didn't have a plan, but not very long after, I was approached by a recruiter on LinkedIn, and was offered a role of manager digital marketing for Flow Water. There you go. I still drink it.
Yeah.
I'm not working
Yeah.
there. I still this is the only product that I still drink on a daily basis. I get 10 cases delivered every 3 weeks. I'm still addicted to that water, and I cannot go back to regular tap water. I'm just
What
obsessed with it.
what's the difference? What's the
Um,
difference with that water than others? Just for a listener to understand why you're still drinking that product.
Yeah, so it's a 100% naturally alkaline spring water with a natural pH of 8.1. So, of course, if you have a lot of acid reflux, if you are into sport a lot, the minerals and the electrolytes in it make it just so much better, and the taste is just so pure and crisp. And yeah, no, it's just I just fell in love with that water, and they have flavored water, and they have collagen water now, and even my boyfriend is in love with it, so I just love it. So yeah.
You still have a pretty good sales pitch for the product, so
That's
that's
good. That's good.
that's interesting. And now you've decided like 2 years almost and a half ago you decided to move to Aphria. So why have you decided to move from a startup business at that time from Flow Water, building everything from the ground up, and now you decided to move to Aphria, a publicly traded company?
So I was at Flow for about a year and a half, and like you mentioned, it was a startup company. So anybody who worked for a startup company know how crazy it can be. But at the same time, going from fashion to a CPG company, I kind of realized, okay, there's so much opportunity. There's so much um, that I find interesting in those industries, and it's during that moment where cannabis became legalized in Canada. So um, literally a month after it became legalized, once again, I was approached by a recruiter for
On
an
LinkedIn.
on LinkedIn, always on LinkedIn.
Oh yeah, again.
It's almost like it's almost a joke because literally Redsec, La Vie en Rose, Flow Water, and Aphria was always through LinkedIn, through a recruiter, and I guess I was just really lucky with that. But I got approached for another role. It ended up not working out, and the recruiter asked me, "Would you be interested in the cannabis industry?" I was like, "Oh my god, yes."
Hmm.
Are you kidding me? I'm in Toronto. This is the time to do it. It just became legalized. Digital marketing is going to be amazing for that new industry. Everything has to be built from ground up. I want to do it. So, um,
That's a
after
very
almost
insane challenge. That's
exactly,
amazing. Yeah,
I was
go
here.
ahead.
So why not? You know what?
Yeah.
And I think the interview process was about 3 months, if I remember correctly. A very long
Oh,
process. Met with a lot of people over there, and I just fell in love with that company. I remember it was just like everybody that I met over there. I wanted to work with them. I know how this industry went to get the best people from all of the industries really to build everything all together. So I was just so excited to work with amazing people like that. And here I am, 2 years later. I'm still at Aphria, still downtown Toronto, and I still love my job. Working in the cannabis industry for 2 years, I think anybody could say that it's worth 8 years. Everything is changing so much. Everything is crazy, but you cannot get bored in that industry, that's for sure. Especially not at Aphria.
Yeah,
So yeah,
that's very amazing in terms of challenge.
yeah.
But most of our listener might ask themselves right now: is there any regulation? Are you able to sell online because it's a podcast on e-commerce? And we know in Quebec it's SQDC that is managing all the the sales of the product. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Canadian regulations about selling cannabis online and also in retail in Ontario and all Canada? So how does that work, and what has a company like yours you can do and what you cannot do? Just so we can start from that.
Right. So for us at Aphria, it's almost like we have two channels. One that we do not own, and the other one we own it. So the e-commerce channel that we do own at Aphria is the one for medical patients. So,
Okay.
you and I can go see a medical practitioner and get our prescription, and we can order directly from Aphria our medical cannabis, and get it delivered to our house. So on that channel we own from absolutely everything from A to Z, and I had the pleasure to work on that channel and really redo the customer portal, the retention strategy, the CRM strategy. So that was really interesting. And on the other end, there's just a regular customer channel where we sell at the provincial level. So this is really interesting because all provinces operate completely differently. And as we know in Quebec, the SQDC is responsible for both online and retail sales. But in Ontario, this is completely different. You can purchase online from the OCS, but the retail program is different. So initially, I don't know if you heard about that, but initially in Ontario, um, the province opted for a lottery system to release limited number of retail licenses. So that means you and I
Yep.
could have applied for one to be able to open our own dispensary. But in December 2019, if I remember correctly, Ontario announced that it would stop doing that controversial lottery. That's what they said that it was, and remove the cap on retail licenses. So since then,
Oh,
if you're walking in Toronto, there are so many dispensaries, like so
yeah,
many.
it's
I think
booming.
that in Oh, it is crazy. So, really, since the beginning of 2020, Ontario has seen a massive boom of stores throughout the province. Um, and I think that's why my personal opinion is that cannabis is more accessible here in Ontario than in Quebec for that reason, because there's so many dispensaries. Even if you can order online, you can make it delivered to your house on the same day. So this is really
Hmm.
interesting here. However, on the dispensary side, they own the relationship with customers, right? So as a
Yep.
licensed producer for us at Afria, um, the education needs to be done at the bud tender level. What is a bud tender? It's someone
Yep.
who works in a dispensary, basically, not a
Yeah.
bartender, a bud tender.
Okay.
So,
That's a new
so
word
the
for
education,
everyone.
exactly. No, I love it. So the education needs to happen with the bud tender. So that's where my job is interesting, because I have to find ways of connecting with consumers and, educate them on their products. Why us? Why, let's say, Soleil, or why Riff? Why Good Supply? Why Broken Coast? So, really have so many brands to talk about. We have different segmentations and different targets for all of them. But I think that's what makes it really interesting. And like I said, not to forget about our medical channel, which sometimes overlaps with the recreational one. So,
Yep.
it's quite something, but it's like I said, it's really interesting to navigate throughout all of that. So yeah.
That's very interesting, and we'll get back to Aphria just after I ask you a couple questions about your past e-commerce experience at Levian Rose and Flowwater, because you have a different background in those businesses. So I would like maybe to just start with Levian Rose and Bikini Village. Um, what has been your biggest challenge at Levian Rose when you had basically to launch the new e-commerce for Bikini Village, and what was the steps around it?
So of course, when Bikini Village was acquired by La Viande Rose, and that's a long time ago, um, we had to do everything. Like we had to redo the branding, we had to decide our brand positioning, we had to decide what to do with our stores. So it was not only e-commerce, it was the whole company that was going through a complete rebranding. And on my end, because I was already working on the La Vie en Rose e-commerce, I already knew how what type of technology we wanted to have, but also um, or I remember at the time our strategy was to create the La Vie en Rose website, kind of test it, and then duplicate it for Bikini Village with all of the learnings that we've gained on La Vie en Rose and applied it to Bikini Village.
Yeah. And at that time the challenge was to gather, most of the information to know which direction to take in terms of technology and also in terms of marketing strategy. Can you tell us a little bit more about it? So which strategy was choose at that time, and why do you remember that?
I remember that we were on the Magento platform, so
Yeah.
I'm sure you know about Magento. Everybody, you either
Yeah.
love or you hate Magento, huh?
Yeah,
Um,
it depends which side you're at. If you're on the agency side, you can see a lot of benefits, and on the client side, you can see also the benefits. But depending the version you're using, sometimes yeah, it can be a little bit annoying, but lots of benefits still from the B2C and also the B2B side of Magento. The
exactly.
solution really evolved in the last years. So by now, Magento 2 is way more efficient than Magento 1, which I
Uh-huh.
think was the existing platform you had.
I think so. It's true. I don't actually remember what version it was, but I just remember that we were scratching our head a lot. We had a lot of calls with the agency. The IT department spent quite some time on the back end too. So, and I remember at Rucksack we were also on Magento too. So I had a little bit of experiences.
Yep.
So that was really interesting. And on the CRM side, I remember we had an hint house. I don't remember what it was called, but I remember that we changed our CRM platforms or email service provider to Dot Mailer. I don't know if you
Yeah.
know that company.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I know that.
I think what was really interesting for me is, okay, we have to set up a welcome email. Okay, we have to transfer subscribers. How do we connect it to our retail strategy to do email acquisition? Um, what is the type of communication do we want to have on email? So it was going through all of those basics question and really building from there. So uh, lots of calendars, lots of reviews, lots of trial and errors, lots also of people giving their opinion on how we should present our brand on emails or how we should present our brand on the website. Even how does everything connect together? How do we just the implementation of Google Analytics. I just remember now we had a previous Google Analytics on our other site and we couldn't
Yep.
transfer it to the new one. So at some point, we had two Google Analytics running at the same time, and we were just trying to
Oh.
reconcile the data together. Um,
Yeah.
I just remember that now. It was quite challenging. Yes, I remember.
Yeah.
But that's what you have to go through. I think when you're in a startup mode, because that's what it was really. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's amazing. And for people that are listening, Dot Mailer since then changed name for Dot Digital, so it's still the same platform. They revamped the UI, but now it's called Dot Digital, and they're still in the market, of course. All right, let's move forward on the flow water side. I saw that you were responsible to implement the CRM there, and I wanted to see and understand more at a startup scale. Uh, what was the system you choose to use in terms of CRM, and why have you decided to use a CRM for a B2C business?
So Flow is technically we were really big into B2C and B2B. So of course my role was mostly on the B2C side, sorry, but on the
Yep.
B2B side, we were already using Salesforce to manage
Okay.
all of our clients. So what I mean by clients is shoppers, Whole Food, Costco, Walmart, so really the big retailers. And on my side, it was really offices or even me who's getting delivered 10 cases every 3 weeks. So I had to have one place to centralize all of the data, but also to be able to talk to them as often as I wanted. And I needed a super flexible platform where I didn't need a huge team to be able to develop everything. And
Mhm.
I remember that was the case with Salesforce at first. Anybody who worked with Salesforce is going to tell you, I think it's like Magento. You either like it or you hate Salesforce. It's one or the other. Uh, and at Flow, I unfortunately hated it because I was alone and I couldn't understand it. Um, and I think that you
That's honest.
exactly. I think that if you have a team with
Yep.
you to work on Salesforce, that's an amazing platform. That's what we're using
Yep.
currently at Aphria, but we have
Yep.
people who are operating it. At Flow, it was such a big piece of technology for the basic startup need that we had that it was just not
Yep.
working. So we kept our CRM database in Salesforce. However, we started to link a new email service provider that was much more better from a UX perspective. And that's my
Mm.
personal favorite email service provider is Klaviyo. Do you know this one?
Oh yeah, we are
Yeah.
Klaviyo partner. We are gold partner at Novatize. So
So there
yeah,
you
we
go.
do know well. We do know them well. Yeah, that's a very good
I
solution.
Exactly. So really that's what I did. I went from Salesforce exact target, so to create my emails, to really transfer everything to Klaviyo, to be able to really connect everything properly with the website, but also
Hmm.
analytics and of course really our CRM and our data list of subscribers. Um,
You've decided to move to Klaviyo because of the UI and UX of the platform that was more convenient. So you were able to launch campaigns and things like that very easier than on Salesforce. That's what I get.
And yes, and it's also, having more options based on the customer behavior. So it's like, okay, my customer has placed that amount of purchases. What type of communication am I putting? That person hasn't placed an order or has canceled their subscription. What do we do with them? So it can really be a super great tool of determining, if this happens, we're going to push that. If that happens, we're going to
Hmm.
do that instead. So I think that for marketers who are even starting their business, or if you're far in your strategy, Klaviyo was just really a great platform that could be flexible in time and that could really that could really fit with our business needs. So I think that's really why I like Klaviyo. And the drag and drop template, it makes it so easy, no coding. And of course they offer amazing service too, and when you have an agency like yours, it just makes it amazing, and it's a no-brainer to work on Klaviyo for me. So that's why I liked it.
That's very interesting to hear. All right, thanks for answering this question. I know you've opened also the Amazon account on the seller side of Amazon for Flow Water, like almost 3 years ago. Can you tell us a little bit more about the issues you had, and also which type of success you had at the end? And can you just walk us through, the steps and all the issues?
I think I really like that you asked the question by asking the issues first, because everybody who knows or who have worked on Amazon or tried to set up something know how challenging it is. But strangely, nobody can pinpoint exactly why. And that's the funniest part, in my opinion. And I think it's really a combination of so many things. Um, you know, Amazon has the best user experience for their users, but not necessarily for their vendors. Anything around logistic is quite challenging. So to be able to navigate through that, I had to go get some help. I couldn't do that alone, and I couldn't rely on Amazon to help me. If you're not a big
Mm.
account enough, they're not helping you. They have videos, They have documentations online, and they will always redirect you to it, even if you don't understand and you have specific questions. So, I think, I think it's a lot of work, but I think it does amazing things for your brand. You can have crazy exposure by selling on Amazon, and I think that was really the ultimate goal for us. Um,
Hmm.
you know, we were selling water. We were selling a case of 12 box of water like that. So you can
Yeah.
imagine how heavy a box of this is, right? So you can
Oh
see me
yeah.
coming now. Um,
Yeah.
Amazon fees are said to be 1/3 of the sell price of the item. For us, because our product was so heavy, it was mostly 3/4 of the price, was taken as Amazon fees. We were not making money on it.
Wow. Mhm.
I was always very transparent about that internally, and it was always a decision that we made to not make profit on Amazon because we wanted to grow the brand. We wanted to grow our
Okay.
presence in the US. We wanted to have a foot in the door in the US. We wanted to be in people's house. We just wanted to get our brand out there, and it worked. If you're following
Mm.
Flow today, it worked really well. But Amazon was definitely an investment for the company and not profitable.
Mm.
Um, so
So
I, yeah,
so you were FBA at that time. So you were shipping your inventory to Amazon, and then they were dispatching the orders directly to the consumer, right?
correct. Yes, we were on the FBA program. Um,
Okay.
you know, at some point we did have some guidance. We did have some support because our velocity was just amazing.
And at that point, do you think they've removed the product on Amazon, or now they're fulfilling by FBM or something else? How do you think they adapt themselves? You know.
So right before leaving, we were in discussion with Amazon. We were in discussion to become a vendor,
Hmm.
and really to be able to do everything by ourselves. I unfortunately don't know where it landed out. I know that
Hmm.
amazing things happened for the company. I'm not sure if Amazon continued to be one of their main channel, but I know for a fact that they just really continued from a national perspective in both Canada and US, and now they're just everywhere. So I don't think they need Amazon anymore. Um, but it was certainly a big player in their growth, I think.
That's very interesting to see that you leverage Amazon to build the brand and make people recognize the brand outside also of Amazon. And most of the time when we talk with brands, they think Amazon will decrease their their how their clients are seeing the brand instead of just seeing the opportunity to grow and acquire some new customer, because Flow, of course, was a recurring revenue business.
Yeah,
Like when you start, as you said, you're receiving lots of bottle each month, and I guess it was a part of the strategy to just go hook a new client from Amazon and then bring it back to the regular e-commerce strategies. So that's very very interesting.
exactly. And of course, with time you develop a few tactics. Can you add something in the box of the water, that gives a special discount for them to come on the website instead, or follow us on
Mhm.
social. So you really, the goal is to leverage the Amazon channel to bring them to your own channel, and keep them loyal there. So like you said, really the goal is to leverage Amazon and bring them to our court. So that's what we did.
Yeah, and for a brand like Flow, for a type of product that is very heavy and takes a lot of space in terms of shipping, it's normal that at a certain point when you get a certain velocity to try to see if there's opportunities on the vendor side also, because
Totally.
for listeners that are currently listening, vendor side is more a regular retail type of business. So
Yeah,
basically, you're selling your stuff to Amazon, and then they're selling it back. So you're sure that you are not no longer losing money at that point. But before
exactly.
entering there, you need to have a certain traction, and Amazon needs to see that customers are searching for your product. So that's a very good thing that you started, on the seller side, grow and build the brand at the same time leveraging all your other sales channel, and then moving forward to ask to join on the vendor side. So that was a very good strategy, and that's most of the brands are doing that right now. So that's a good thing.
Good to know.
All right, let's jump back to Aphria. So we've talked about regulations earlier about the cannabis industry. How does those regulation affect your go to market approach? You talked to me about some regulations on the platform, so tell us a little bit more about how does it affect your business and your way to reach to your potential customers.
So when you think about digital marketing, it's easy to think right away, about social ads,
Mhm.
Google search, display ads, advertising in general. But there's so many things in the cannabis industry that you cannot do. And
Okay.
I think it was a big surprise for me when I got there. Most of my experience is on Facebook ads, and I really search console and really work with Google on getting more traffic to the website and all. But this is not happening on the cannabis industry. So Facebook and Google, forget about it. You cannot do anything outside then from an organic standpoint. So of course we
Yeah.
have
Okay.
our regular social channel. Um, it's it has to be age gated. So if your account is set at 19 plus already, you're not going to see the age gate. You're just going to access to the social platform organically. But if you want
Hmm.
to do paid ads, forget about it. What's really interesting though is that Twitter and Snapchat are actually the first two social platforms to accept cannabis advertising.
Oh, okay.
So, and this is pretty new. They've started to work really with the licensed producers in Canada to develop that because there's so much potential. When you're working
Okay.
with social platforms like that, you have a direct access to the user data. Like exactly if that person is interested in receiving um, information around cannabis or not at all. So I think that has been really interesting for us. Just looking what the opportunities are with Snapchat and Twitter. And don't get me wrong, Snapchat can seem youthful, but it's actually not. It's a pretty older demographic, which grew with the millennial too. So this is really
Hmm.
interesting. Let's say versus TikTok. So um, there's really interesting strategies to do from a paid standpoint and mix it with your organic to be able to really calculate your return on investment. So that's where my job comes in, and I think it's super interesting for a marketer like me to be able to
Hmm.
test like an emerging paid channel and apply it to an organic layer of our social channels. I think that's just super interesting. And that's what I'm
It
looking
is.
into it as we speak right now. But I don't have a choice because I cannot do anything on the other social platform, again, from a paid standpoint, and neither
Mhm.
from Google. We do have calls with them every quarter. We call Facebook, literally, we call Facebook, we call Google, and try to have conversations with them, and it's still a no. They're starting to be a little more flexible with hemp in the US, but
Yep.
really not worth enough doing business with them from a cannabis standpoint. So it's still impossible for us to do something there. But regardless, I can still have my e-commerce with my medical patients. I can still have a branded site that gives information about our products, where you can buy products, what is our brand about. So again, going back to that from a digital marketing standpoint, there's still things you can do, just not as much as the other industries, like the typical fashion or the typical CPG
Mhm.
that a
Of
digital
course.
marketer would work on, if I could say. So that was really interesting.
That's a good challenge to work through those limitations, of course. And talking about challenge, what's your biggest challenge right now in your role? Does your role is affected by the fact that you're working at a publicly traded company, and what do you have in terms of restrictions or opportunities? That's the word that I have lots of difficulty to say, opportunities. So I will try to practice this word.
So I think what has been difficult, I think the industry as a whole is super challenging. Not necessarily
Mhm,
from a negative perspective, but
mhm.
you cannot, you just cannot get bored with that industry. There's always something changing, always something evolving, but there's always new opportunities. And I think that what's interesting with the cannabis industry is that even if it was a no a year ago, maybe the no is going to change into a yes in a few months from now. So it's still trying and pushing, and lots of conversation with legal department to, can we do that? Okay, now can we do that? Look, this company is doing it, why can't we do it? So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of negotiation internally too, but that's what makes
Yep.
it interesting. I think that the fact that at the federal level you have certain regulation, at the provincial level you have other sets of regulations. You're not selling the products in all markets. Some market, giving you an example, you cannot purchase vapes in Quebec, but vapes
Yep.
are super legal. Answering your question, I think it's all about the regulation. This is the most challenging part. It's deciding the level of risk the company is comfortable with,
Okay.
and yeah, it all comes down to that, I think.
That's very interesting, and that's challenging for sure because the markets still evolve very fast. And I was listening an interview of your CEO, and he was talking about the regulation in the U.S. and how he think it will change and evolve in in the following years, in 2 up to 3 years. Maybe we're expecting something to become legal in the U.S. So I think all the Google and the Facebook will adapt themselves.
For
So I
sure.
think there's a light at the end of the tunnel for sure about those restrictions. So be patient. In 3 years you're gonna be able to do some Facebook ads, I guess. That's my
But
best
this
guess.
is, yeah, but if you think about it, this is such an amazing, um, you know, financial opportunities for those companies too, right? For the Facebook and the Google of this world, like
Yeah.
this is just amazing what we can do with them, and there's a way to really do it right. And like you said, I'm
Mhm.
I'm sure it's only a question of time before it happens. So we'll
Yeah.
be patient with that. Yeah.
So on a final note, would like to know, how do you stay up to date in terms of digital marketing and e-commerce? What's your trusted source of knowledge outside of this podcast?
You know what? I do not have one source.
Okay.
I think that throughout the years I made some amazing connections. And those people generally have their own blog, they have their own podcast, just like you too. So I've been following a lot of people in the industry that are just keeping me up to date. I'm also subscribed
Mhm.
to so many companies, blogs, e-commerce businesses too. Every day I take about an hour every morning to go through all of them. And since I'm at Aphria, I have to admit that I spend quite some time staying up to date on the cannabis industry in both US and Canada because
Of
it's
course.
changing so fast. And of course, I love going to conferences.
Yeah.
You know, I've been in Toronto for almost 4 years now, and I have to say that Montreal has amazing e-commerce and digital marketing conferences.
Yeah.
And in the world before COVID, I do miss going to conferences. And just really growing your network there, and trying to learn on specific things that you're working on, or when you have a specific project in mind. I think conferences are so great for that. And
Mhm.
when I can, I love listening to podcasts and read books. But when I read books, it's mostly about, time management, leadership, business growth, and all of that, which feeds in the e-commerce and digital marketing world, that's for sure. So not a single source, not a particular source, but just so many things. I just try to look at different things at the same time and just keep up to date that way.
Always stay curious. That's important. Yeah,
Yep.
that's very cool. And on an ending note, what would be your best advice for someone that would like to have a role like yours? Because I think you're the one of the only digital marketing expert at Aphria. So what would be your best advice to get there? Because I think it's a pretty nice role.
Thank you. I think, I think there's a combination of a lot of hard work, but also right timing. I was
Mhm.
lucky to meet the people that I've met and to have the opportunities that I had. But I spoke about that throughout our interview. And, my first advice is make sure your LinkedIn is A1 because that was the key for me that allowed me to grow my contact. And you never know who looks
Yep.
at your profile and decides to write to you. Like you did it with me to be able to discuss today. So
Yeah.
really LinkedIn is such a powerful tool and everybody needs to make sure that their profile is A1, that that you're looking at it often and that you're trying to make connection with other people. And this brings me to my second advice is always answer recruiters even if you're not
Okay.
interested, even if it's not a role for you. I said it earlier, I got all of my roles through recruiter, and trust me, most of the time they have access to roles that are not even public, that are not in the market. And my personal experience with recruiters was always amazing. So that was my second advice. And
Keep them
what
close.
what worked for me personally, keep them close always. And what worked well for me is wherever you work, go get yourself a mentor. Someone
Hmm.
whom you can ask dumb questions and just go back to basics, and not being scared of asking questions, because if you want to grow your career, you're going to have to be ready to be vulnerable and you're going to have to be ready to make some mistakes. But in the end, I think that's how
Mm.
you're going to grow. And I think that's how I got to where I am today is by, just being curious, being pushy, um, being nice, of course, and just be vulnerable with people and just be ready to learn and put your boots in and go to work. So yeah, these are really my advice. The rest you can learn it. You can learn about pretty much everything on e-commerce and digital marketing online for free. Um, if you want to go specialize in something, go get yourself some certificate to go get some expertise on that. But yeah, I think that most of the thing can be learned online, and I think that if you have the right mentor, it's the sky's the limit. So yeah, these were my advices.
Thank you for those very good advice. I'm sure most of the people will apply them, of course.
Hope so.
Sarah,
Thanks.
thank you so much for being with us today. And
Thank
I
you.
guess like if people have some questions for you or anything, you have a pretty good LinkedIn profile that can receive some questions or inquiries. So all right, thank you so much, Sarah. It was a
Thank
pleasure.
you. Thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Bye.